Yellow Productions presents a travel guide for visiting the city of Vienna in Austria.
A good place to start your sightseeing in Vienna is at the Opera. It is on the Ringstrasse, which is the ring road that goes around the Old Town district, and actually Rick Steves has a very handy audio guide that you can follow on this tour to help you around. To experience some typical Viennese culture, spend an evening at the Opera. You might think opera's expensive, but here in Vienna you can get standing room only tickets for the bargain price of €3. Your feet might get tired, but it's a really cool way to see an opera in a really awesome building. The standing tickets go on sale 80 minutes prior to showtime. So if showtime is at 7 o'clock, then the standing area tickets come on sale at 5:40. You line up at the sign that says standing area on the side of the opera. After you buy your tickets, then 45 minutes before the show, so if it starts 6:15, they'll let you in to get your standing spot. You can save your standing spot with a scarf, and only a scarf, not a jacket, not a towel, but if you bring a scarf, they'll let you tie it on the pole, and that'll save your spot. You can go out and get a drink, you can go and get something to eat, be back at showtime, and you'll have a great spot in the front of the opera. Enjoy. Right behind the opera is the Café Sacher, which is home to the Sacher Tortes, a very typical Viennese chocolate cake. Chocolate cake served with a dollop of whipped cream. It's also a typical Viennese coffee house where you can have coffee and hot chocolate in a typical, very elegant Viennese style. If that's not your cup of tea or your cup of coffee, there's also a Starbucks right down the street. Just past the opera is the pedestrian street known as Kartnerstrasse. It is a great place to do people watching in Vienna, maybe do some shopping. There's a H&M as well as a McDonald's on this street. There's plenty of window shopping to be had on this street, literally, because many of the stores display their prices right in the window, so you don't even have to go inside to know what you'd pay. I like it. If you'd like to pick up a fancy chandelier, stop by J&L Lobmeyer. I'm sure it'll pack well in your carry-on. A store on the street was selling some t-shirts to remind you that in fact there are no kangaroos in Austria. I guess people confuse Austria with Australia. Now you know. In the middle of the old town of Vienna is Hofburg Palace, the imperial palace where the Habsburg family ruled. You can go in to see the imperial apartments and also the Sisi Museum. On the ticket to the museum is a picture of Cici. Cici was the last empress of Austria, and she was famous for having a 20-inch waist, being very fit, potentially starving herself, and so there's a museum about her life. She was tragically murdered with a stab wound by an Italian anarchist, and ever since she has been kind of made as a public figure to remember in Austria. Even though Empress Cici worked hard to keep her svelte figure, when she did eat, she enjoyed chocolates, particularly at Demel, which is just 1 block away from the palace. One of her favorites was also candy violet. Another thing that's really good at Demel is the Sacher Tortes, which was not originated here, but since this is a chocolateria, many people from Austria say they have improved the recipe. Austria is one of the world's capitals of smoking. People smoke here so much that there are actually vending machines on the side of the road you can buy cigarettes out at. It's a vending machine in front of a cigarette store. Austria is also one of the few countries in Europe that still allows smoking in restaurants. The good news is there's plenty of outdoor eating, so if you don't like cigarette smoke, you can always find a table far away from the people smoking. Vienna has a couple of main modes of transport as a tourist that you'll be enjoying. Number 1 is their tram system, and number 2 is their train system. You can buy tickets for €250 each ride, or you can buy a 72-hour or 1-day ticket. I like the 72-hour tickets because you don't have to worry about validating them every time you get on. If you buy the single ride tickets, when you get on the tram or the train, you validate them at one of their machines. All the trams that run on the streets are numbered, and many of the stops have digital signs that let you know when the tram comes. Tram 2 will be here in 1 minute, so see you on the tram. A great way to get yourself oriented to the old town of Vienna is to take the tram along the Ringstrasse. The Ringstrasse is the ring road that runs along the outskirts of the old town of Vienna. It used to be the borders of the city walls, and now there are 2 trams that run around the circle. There's the tram number 1 and tram number 2. You'll have to switch halfway through, but it's a great way to see the sights from the comfort of an old or maybe new tram. So you can tell which tram stop it is stopped by the numbers or letters that are on the sign, and the tram stops have names, but they're really hard to see because they're in those little tiny letters right up there. This is the burgering stop. This wall here along the Ringstrasse is the last remaining portion of the city walls of Vienna, and just past these walls are the Hofburg Palace.
When you're in Vienna, or as it's known locally, Wien, as in Wiener, you need to get some sausages.
Some of the things that are recognizable to Americans are bratwurst and frankenfurters, which are like hot dogs, but you can venture out into the Kaiserkreiner, which are the sausages that have cheese inside. It was really pretty good. Definitely not for the vegetarians though. Think sausage, cheese inside. It's an even more sausagey, greasy experience. A little more on the higher end of the eating scale than actual hot dogs is Wienerschnitzel. No, not the American hot dog chain, but breaded veal or pork served like here. Plachutta is one of the most famous restaurants in Vienna for veal. It's served with a side of potato salad. Their other specialty is boiled beef, which is a pot of soup that has various cuts of boiled beef. Their specialty is the beef rump. And on the side of this is fried potatoes. This particular restaurant, Plachutta, is famous. A number of famous Americans have eaten here. Al Gore, people may know him as a vice president, but even more importantly, Anthony Bourdain. If you're tired of wieners and schnitzel, good news is that Vienna is home to lots of other international cuisines, but it's Thailand-ish, Chinese-ish, Japanese-ish, and Korean-ish. So it's those nationality foods, but ish, you know, they've got kind of an Austrian flair to them. For a great view of the Old Town, climb on up to the top of the Cathedral Tower. There's 4 windows at the top, excellent views, costs €4 for the climb. It's a little over 300 stairs, but it's well worth it to see the city from this vantage point. 343 steps, to be exact. Going down is a lot easier than going up, but one thing I will say is this is not a staircase for those that are claustrophobic.
Behind the cathedral, there are a number of horse carriages waiting to take tourists on a ride of the Old Town. These are the cutest horses I've ever seen because they also have raincoats and ear covers, continuing that Austrian elegance.
If after walking around Vienna you get tired of all the classical architecture, good news, you can feast your eyes on the Hundertwasserhaus, which is a house that was built by this architect, Hundertwasser, and he believed in a forested roof, plants growing out of apartments, and actually undulating floors on the inside. Across the street from the apartment, there's a little shopping mall that's built in his same style. With a visit to the Schonbrunn Palace, one can see what the Hofburg family used to live like. The Hofburg family were the rulers of the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and they built this palace to rival Versailles. The outside, although it looks very plain, the inside is very elaborate. The tickets are about €14 to go inside. There's 2 different lengths of tours. One of the highlights, you can see Sisi's dressing room, the empress that was famous for spending hours a day to get dressed. And actually when Topper came in, it inspired him. He needed his changing room, and so we have this little bag for him that he can get changed in, and it also helps him stay clean as we carry him around. The palace has 1,410 rooms. Good news is you won't be touring all of those on your visit. If you buy the grand tour, it includes 40 of the best rooms inside the palace. And so with that, we'll conclude our tour of Vienna by saying goodbye to Maria Theresa, the greatest empress from Vienna. And the Russian ruler at the time said, when Vienna finally gets a great man, it's a woman. So with that, we will bid Vienna goodbye, or Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.